The views and opinions on the Craig L. Hayes Show do not necessarily reflect those of Westgate Resorts, ownership, or management. And now, on with the show.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Get your copies while they last. Stop the presses.
And now for something completely different.
Are you ready for a little truth? Are we not entertained? Wisdom is the proper use of knowledge and experience. There are no safe spaces here. The truth shall make you free. It's showtime! So you want the truth, but can you handle the truth? Well, here's another fine mess you've gotten us into. Now that's entertainment. Enlighten me a little. What you say is quite logical. And what did we learn? Prepare yourself for a little sensory overload. I came here for the truth. 47 years ago, stand by the roll show intro. Roll show intro in 3, 2, 1, go.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
Hello, America, family, friends, listeners all around this planet we call home. This is the Craig L. Hayes Show. That's me, Craig L. Hayes. And we are doing another episode or another interview on our series of behind the scenes in Las Vegas show business. And we're going to introduce the guest here in just a minute. But first, we are here at the Westgate Resort in Las Vegas. And we are in Elvis Presley's dressing room. And right next door to us is Barry Manilow's dressing room. The two men that have had the most shows in this showroom. Elvis had 636 shows, and Barry is up around 700 now. I did 673 of those shows with him. So we're going to just carry on and thank Cammie Christensen, who's president of this hotel. She has allowed us to do this show from this historic venue, along with Don Rawl, who's vice president of entertainment, and John Peer, who's the entertainment technical director. Thank you guys for letting us do this show and keeping the history of this hotel's showroom going and the history of Las Vegas being talked about. To that end, we're going to move on to a very special guest. I've known her for quite a few years, like 30 years or so, around there, when we worked Starlight Express together. And then she has done wardrobe around this hotel for, well, she'll tell you her story here in just a couple minutes here. But let me introduce her to you. She's an awesome wardrobe and fabricator of costumes, and you name it. If it's got material and thread in it, she can do it, and she can make it happen. And she's got some stories to tell about her experiences around entertainers in Las Vegas in the showrooms. So Mary, her name is Mary Walker. Mary, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Craig. My name is Mary Ann Heron Walker, and I was born in St. George, Utah, back in 1945. So I'm soon pushing 80 years old. My life started out as a little kid watching my grandparents and my great aunts and that doing sewing. They were quilters, they were crocheters, knitters, whatever. They competed very highly with each other. And I got to learn all of the many talents that my ancestors had. As a little kid, the first thing I did was cut my pinafore up, cut my bangs, and cut the side of my braid off my hair. And that started my career in costuming by altering my own dress. I was one of five kids. had an older brother that was like a rocket scientist, and a middle brother that was allergic to everything on God's green earth, and then a younger sister that's 5 years younger, and then a younger brother that was 13 years younger from us. We started out being given money to go to the movies all of the time. My mother would get rid of me by getting 25 to 35 cents and say, here, go see a movie. So I would sit 4 or 5 rows back and watch every costume that was ever created in any movie. Some of my favorites were like 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. Little did I know I would meet several people who interacted with Howard Keel over the years. And I did manage to get his autographed picture at one time. My early days, I went to work in a sleeping bag factory sewing zippers into sleeping bags. It was for Sears and Roebuck and the Wenzel Tent Company. And that was a plant on the other side of St. George. And we put like anywhere from 80 to 125 zippers a day into sleeping bags. You had to sew 2 pieces of fabric together, and then down one side of it, you would put a zipper in between, and then those pieces were carried on down the line to somebody else to put quilt batting in, and then they would quilt the sleeping bag, and then they would turn it right, so all of it wrong sided, zip it together and hem off the top of it. And that would be what we did all day. Well, that got me a job with Starlight Express, because the one thing that they were good at was getting the zippers caught in the costumes. And sometimes they had to cut the zipper in order to get the person in and out of it. So the repair for for the costumes, the minute I told Martha Neff that I knew how to repair zippers, she started deciding that she wanted me on the crew for Starlight Express. That show had already started in February, and I came on board in April. And there was something like 42 in the cast and over 18 dressers, plus the assorted stagehands and spotlights and the other part of the crew, plus a costume shop upstairs that was run by the Troika Company. It was quite an event. I was fascinated by the fact that Andrew Lloyd Webber had put together a show on roller skates. My imagination only wouldn't expand farther than people going back and forth across the stage, because I didn't understand how he had created like a Circle 8 track for the show. And what they did was they ran part of the skaters out and through the audience, so the people that were in the middle of the show were not allowed to go anywhere during the show because they'd get run over by roller skaters. And it was quite a production. We had many, many superstars. We had Jimmy Lockett was one that was a Juilliard graduate. We had Tony Perry and Taz Yancey and countless others that were in the show over the almost 5 years that we were here at the Hilton with, I forgot, it's Westgate, right?
It's Westgate now, yeah.
We changed names 4 or 5
Yeah,
I
it's
think
changed
6
a few times.
just a few times. We were LVH, we were,
International, Las Vegas Hilton, LVH, and now Westgate.
there you go, you missed a couple. Because we sold it to the guy down on the highway once upon a time and never put a payment on it, so I don't think they changed the name.
No.
But it's been a learning experience to go through the many different managers and all the different things that went on here. The creativity of the Starlight Express costumes was absolutely incredible, because when I started working, we were doing a roller skate exchange, and the roller skates were taped and painted and then put back in the box, and then the boxes were carted upstairs and then back into a skate room where the wheels were checked and for each show. And that was a ritual that was done every day. The costumes were hung on large racks, and they had a dry room that was like 182 degrees or something, where they would dry between shows, and we did 6 shows a week, and they were quite cumbersome. Each one of the characters in the show had 2 dressers where you could berth a pair of roller skates through the legs on their costumes in order to change them into a different costume. During that time, a skater would be sitting while he tried to get his roller skates back through his pant legs, and then zip the pants leg down and then snap the under part of the skate. There were many, many creative train costume characters, from an electric train. There was a little steam train, which is the story about the little train that could, and he was quite a character. That was part of Jimmy Lockett's character, and he was a steam train, and then they had the real fast super electric train and a diner car, and they had absolutely incredible makeup. And the hard part about them was that they shoelaced together. So in order to take the costumes apart and wash them, they'd have to unlace shoe laces plus rusty snaps and hooks. And it took them 1.5 days to undo all of the different things off of the costume, and then only 3 jackets would go in the washer at a time, and those were plunged up and down with a toilet plunger to keep and make sure that they were fresh. There was 2 pair of pants that would be able to be washed, and that was some of the first things that I did, plus repairs and painting the different costumes. And then later in the show, I was able to take over the technical part of keeping the light on in the tunnel, which was every one of the little trains had a Makita battery pack in their helmet with a light, and you had to keep the light on going while the little trains were going around, and it was quite an ordeal to keep all the batteries charged and wired. And I had a lot of help from some of the stagehand guys that really didn't want that job, but they would come down and help me keep those kind of things going. And then we got a new president to the hotel, and he decided he didn't want the railroad train anymore. So basically we were told we had, I think they gave us 6 months notice, which is really, do you stay the full length or do you find another job when they tell you you're out in 6 months? So I stayed on, and we packed up all Andrew Lloyd Webber stuff, and then at one point I had to put all the stage curtains up because there was no stage curtains anywhere. It was all open, and so big bins full of the older curtains that had been up in the showroom started coming out, and they were laid out on the floor. And you got to crawl around the stage and try to figure out which pieces would fit and which ones wouldn't, and then to shorten or lengthen. And then the stagehands would have to hang all of those back in order to produce the next few shows that we were doing, which we went into country shows after that. We did win the award for being the country Western show. I don't know whether it was an Oscar or Emmy award-winning trophy that Phil Reynolds went down and accepted for the Hilton. There was many, many opportunities to meet all kinds of celebrities, We've had many, many experiences. Some of them, many of the shows we did rent. We did Buddy. We did Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat with the Osmond kids. And then the countless other celebrities that were in and out. I have a calendar from the 2000 year where one of the first shows that we did was Pat Benatar and her guitar. I don't know,
Is that
significant
that's
other.
her husband, yeah.
Husband.
Yeah, it's her husband.
Now here's some curiosity things. She brought her own washer and dryer, and they were in showcases, like the band equipment and that. And she would bring her washer and dryer down and plug them in the laundry room. And then one day I was sitting and I could hear something going on in the green room, and it was a thump, 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 thump. And I kept on going and going. I thought, like after about 12 minutes, I thought, well, I'm going to go see what that's all about. And Gil, Pat Benatar's lovely guy, was in the green room on 2 banquet tables, jumping rope. And he was jumping rope continuously. And then he would stop. I think he stopped for about 5 minutes. And then he started in again and did another routine of 17 minutes. But that was his ritual in order to go out and run through the audience and go up and climb through and go around all the different people in the audience while she was singing on stage. The dress she wore that night was absolutely gorgeous. She had almost like a Cinderella ballerina-style dress to her, clear down to the floor, and it had 9 layers of black netting, and she would look like the center of a beautiful cake. What an incredible lady she was. They were nice and had a really nice family. And she brought her kids in and got to feed them, and she would cook some of the stuff herself, which was amazing. And then our next person was the curtain repair, did all of that. And then they had a multimillionaire shoot. I can't remember whether that was Marrying the Millionaire or not. We'll get back to that one later.
Yeah, I think that was Who Wants to Marry a Millionaire.
Was it? That was a great show.
Yeah.
I knew Pete Menefee from Jubilee, because he was one of the costumers for the Jubilee show. So I got to go with him and go pick out wedding dresses for about, I think, 40 women that came in to try to be the new bride of a millionaire. And what was hilarious about it was that the judge that married him and Pete Menefee, the jeweler, brought a $40,000 diamond in for the lady to have. But we got a clue right before the whole thing started that one of the guys on our crew remembered the millionaire from the Riviera as a comedy man. So we were like, oh, this is going to be good. So they got the different brides and promenaded them up and down the stairs. There's rose petals and rhinestones and glitter and you name it all over the stage. And they finally narrowed it down to 4, I think it was, or 5. And then they picked out this one lady and they proceeded with a wedding, which was hilarious because the judge from downtown was there. The jeweler presented them with a beautiful diamond ring. And then we stood there watching, and then I went back downstairs to start gathering some of the costumes up. And the next thing I know, the bride comes running past the wardrobe room and hightails up the back stairs and out the door. And then here comes the groom behind her, and he comes in and he's trying to tell me this is a real wedding. This is a really, really a real wedding, and I really, really love this woman, and she's my wife. And that other lady had hightailed it, and they finally found her in Mexico somewhere. And she ended up in the gossip papers all over the place, and we still have some of those in my scrapbook somewhere. But that lady ran as far away from that guy as she could get. So, and then he left his shoes behind. So those were another story coming up where we did a PBS special, and Frankie Avalon's little boy broke his shoe, and so I had a pair of black patent leather shoes that he got to wear for his show, thanks to the groom. But we never did figure out what was going on. I know that the judge, me, and Michael E. Minden needed to put a sack over our head because that was too much fun for one day. You gotta take all the wedding gowns back. And all the girls, there was a couple of people in the group that got fired. The ladies did because they had given up their jobs wherever they lived, thinking they were going to be the one that got to marry the millionaire.
You know, you get to be down here where all the action's happening on that stuff, because you get to hear all these things, and because you're down here helping getting dressed with all these people. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? These people they'd all come here on a contestant show like that, and you would quit your job thinking you're going to marry a millionaire. Wow, that's pretty gutsy. That's pretty gutsy. And you get to listen to all of them talk about it, and did any of them on that show? Did any of them really take it seriously, or was this just a publicity stunt for some of them, or what was it with some of the women?
I'm not really sure because I think they were just gullible more than anything else. They just thought they could take on hook, line, and sinker and get sold the Brooklyn Bridge, I guess. They got to wear a beautiful wedding gown. They got taken out to dinner on the town by Pete Menifee, and some of them were really gorgeous women.
Yeah, I remember there were some of them were very attractive women, and yeah, it was, to me, it was a weird show, but it was still a good show. I kind of liked it, but you have some more stories, some more things you want to tell us, then I want to go back and talk a little bit about them here in just a bit. But I know you had written down a bunch of the stuff you had done, and so do you have more you want to talk about on your list?
I want to talk about the fact that set for the millionaire looked like a vault. It was absolutely gorgeous. It looked like a bank vault. And I thought that should be on some of the other shows. I should have saved that one.
It really was a good-looking set. Probably one of the best-looking, scenic pieces and sets that I've ever seen. So they did a good job with that one. They really did. I thought maybe they'd try to do another couple episodes or something like that, but I think there was so much controversy around that show because of, what had happened on it and all that stuff.
Runaway bride to Mexico.
Runaway bride, and you had a guy that, was he really a millionaire or was he still a comic? Because I remember he was a comic over at the Improv at the Riviera. He'd been over there, so I don't know much about the whole thing other than all the controversy, and it was pretty insane. Some pretty insane stuff went down there. What else you have over there on your list?
Got the Buddy Show.
Buddy Show. Okay, cool.
We did a Buddy Holly show.
That was a great show.
And then there was a romance in there too, backstage.
Yeah,
I introduced Pat Petrillo to Carl. He was looking for a roommate, and she was looking for some place to stay. And I introduced those two, and they later got married, and they're still together after all these years.
Yeah, they are. And there was another one too. One of the stagehands and one of the cast members got married. And yeah,
Who knew? It
Yeah.
was rock and roll and Buddy Holly all the way.
yeah, romance was in the air on that show, I guess. So it was a good show, though. I really liked that show.
It was high spirited and a lot of fun. And then one of my favorite stories, this was on, the 17th of, I'm not sure, can't tell which week. Anyway, Sinbad came to the hotel, and he was here for 2 days. And Ed McDonald brought him downstairs, and I was sitting in the wardrobe room, and I got up to go meet them. And I got over by the door, and Ed McDonald turned to Sinbad, and he said, "This is Mary." And Sinbad looked right at me, and he says, "Do you have pants?" And I said, "Yes." And he started taking his pants off. He dropped his pants and turned around and handed me his pants and said, "Let these down as far as they'll go." And he had on his old basketball shorts that he wore underneath his clothes while he did his comedy routine. But that was like, Ed McDonald was like a little bit surprised. So was I.
Well, as a wardrobe person, you're very much around people taking off clothes and putting new clothes on. So why not?
There you go. We had Olivia Newton-John after that. What a beautiful lady.
Oh, she is absolutely wonderful.
The biggest problem that we had was that she was under high security because she'd had a stalker fall on her for years, and they didn't know who it was. And I don't know whether they ever found out who was following her, but they kept real tight security on the doors and that back here, as well as up on the stage and front door.
Yeah.
But
But she was a wonderful lady. What just a classy lady, and just an absolute sweetheart. Just so kind to everybody, you know.
my next group is Tim Conway and Harvey Korman.
Oh boy.
You remember them, where you
Oh
had to
yeah.
get a dentist chair shoved out into the middle of the stage.
Yeah, boy, was that some fun stuff or what?
They were incredible. They could make you, people were dying in the aisles laughing, holding their stomachs, and there was not one word spoken.
Well, Tim had the ability just to look at you and pull a face, and you'd start laughing.
He never changed off stage either.
No,
When
he
he was down here in the basement getting ready to go, he was still on. His act was still going on.
Yeah, he was amazing. You know, we've lost both of them now, but boy, that was some of the most enjoyable and funniest show business. It's a
They had
memory.
Louise Duarte was a comedian with them too, a lady, and they did a boring conference where Harvey Korman was standing talking about corn or some other crazy
Yeah.
thing, and Tim was sitting. Louise was between them, so she had this boa wrapped around her neck, and she's trying to keep that thing from itching her nose, and then Tim Conway set it on fire, and she got up and left. And then he's sitting there, and Corman's still going on and on and on, and Tim tips himself over and lands in his plate, ends up with a pork chop stuck to his eye, and he thinks he's gone blind. So he's trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah.
And the only one that was speaking was Tom, or was
It was Harvey. Yeah. That was some funny stuff, man. Those guys, you know, the skits from the Carol Burnett show, to be able to watch those guys do it live and work with them on it. Oh, man, that was some fun stuff there.
They had, what's his name? Bob Mackey was her dresser. They did the costumes for the Carol Burnett show.
Yep.
And then my connection to Bob Mackey is I got to work on the clothes for Jubilee for quite a few years. But we'll go back to my little calendar here. I had Kenny Rogers next, and he came in to do his show. And I had seen Kenny Rogers years ago when I was working downtown at the El Cortez as a change girl. We used to go up and watch Kenny Rogers, and they had like 3 rows of folding chairs in the front glass window at the Gold Nugget. And he has a little tiny stage that he was performing on. And then to be able to meet him in the year 2000 was something else. But he brought in, he had a new wife, and she got him a couple of jackets that were made out of silk, and they weren't show quality at all. Somebody had washed them or something and shrunk the whole silk part of it, so the underfacings and everything were bigger than the outside. And I flat told Kenny Rogers, you need to take those back to where you got them from. I says, because those are not show quality costumes. And he told me politely that this was the big time that I needed to do something about getting them to work for him. And I flat told him he needed to go see Sandy Spica in Nashville and get some show clothes together. And that I remembered him from being down at the Golden Nugget years ago. But he had a roadie with him, a man of color. I'm not sure how it's politely to say. T-Ray was a gorgeous man, and he went to sleep in the swimming pool upstairs on the top of the Hilton and got sunburned and burned the bottom of his feet really bad. And I passed off some aloe vera gel to him, which is one of the things that I kept downstairs, along with aspirin and other stuff. But Kenny was in and out, and I used to carry his laundry through the casino and take it to the bell desk to have his clothes sent out. And I'll get a little giddy about the fact that nobody around there knew I was carrying Kenny Rogers' clothes through the casino.
Probably wondering, what's this lady carrying all these clothes through the casino?
Carrying bags.
Bags of clothes out there. What is that about?
How about Jeff Foxworthy?
Oh, good shows. Good shows.
He's a lovely man. My timing was perfect. I had Brandon, I think it's Brandon Paul, he's 6'4" Elvis look-alike that did all kinds of shows around town. He's usually the one that's in some of the commercials and stuff like that. And he was asking me if I could help him with a boot bag to where he could carry his other clothing and stuff like that in a bag. Wouldn't be quite as obvious as because the jumpsuits Elvis wore didn't have any pockets anywhere or anywhere to put your car keys or anything. So I talked to him. He talked to me about making him a carry-on bag type thing. And I was just exiting the wardrobe room with a 6'4" Elvis look-alike. And what you got to consider is I'm 5 feet tall. So I got this guy that's about 16 inches taller than me in an Elvis suit. And Jeff Foxworthy, the elevator opens and he comes walking through and he goes, "Oh, Mayor, so that's who you hang out with." You couldn't do the timing any better than that.
Yeah, Jeff Foxworthy was a very nice man.
I like his stories about the old aunt that died. They think they have to call her mom and tell about how the old aunt died, and they know she's dead this time for sure. You have to come home, Mom. You got to put a mirror under her nose and she's not breathing. But Anyway, the next one is Trisha Yearwood.
Oh, yeah.
We did her. She was absolutely gorgeous, and I was walking in the hall just as I saw Garth Brooks sneaking into her dressing room.
Now they're married and off and running. So.
Lovely lady, absolutely incredible lady. And then the next one after that is Johnny Mathis.
Wow.